So the general consensus is from Central Scouting and most scouting reports that there's a separation between the top two guys and the rest of the field, if you will. Do you agree with that assessment?
You know what? You got to be really careful there, because there's always that, and then you look back at the history of the draft and who hit and who missed. So you got to be careful going with the public opinion on what's there for the draft. So we get our meetings coming up, and we'll go through it thoroughly, talk about it, and come up with our own consensus. But everybody knows there's two high-end forwards at the top of the draft. We're aware of that, of course. Is there more than that? Yeah, there's more than that. I've been asked if we trade the pick. I don't anticipate it. I really don't. But who knows? The right thing comes along. You can't just say no 100%. You got to listen. So we'll listen, but we'll see. And again, our meetings will determine kind of what we're going to do. But we're excited about the pick. I can tell you that much.
In drafts in general, the theory tends to be best player available. If you determine that the best player available is a defenseman, given the depth you have at that position in prospects, would you change, and can you now afford to draft to need?
We would still go with best player. Sometimes when you're looking, you say, okay, we got this draft slot. We want to draft a defenseman. We can afford to move back because there will be more there, and we can get one of these two players plus a second pick, or we'll get this type of player. So you always look at every option, but philosophically, we'll pick the best player.
All right, it makes no sense for a team at this point to show its hand in what they're thinking and who they're thinking about. Can you take the first few guys or some of the top guys and give us a scouting report on the kind of players they are, like Nolan Patrick, Nico Hischier, and others?
Yeah, I don't really want to get into individuals, but I mean the two guys you mentioned, Hischier and Patrick, they're very good players. They're skilled players. They're different. Patrick's a big body, skilled, good vision, good shot. Hischier's a little bit more. Game's a little bit more based on speed, but they're both very good players, and that next group is there's a lot of good players in it too. Not sure you sit and you go, you can project the exact order that every organization will have, but there's some good players there.
Can you take the average fan into what the process is? I mean, you referred to your meetings, and you guys are going to have a lot of those. Tell us what that process is and what those meetings entail.
Well, we essentially go through every player, and you got to be really, really diligent, because you make your list, and we pretty much stick to it. So we go through every player, every league. You put your list together, round 1 through 7, and we'll adjust as we go along the draft. If we drafted 3 forwards in the first round or 3 defensemen the first 3 rounds, you tend to look a little bit the other way for some balance. But we pretty much stick to our list, so we're pretty diligent with our list. We'll have 2 sets of meetings coming up, 3 or 4 full days, and then come back and for 2 or 3 more days. We go through it thoroughly and get it as right as possible. It's a lot of work. It's fun. You sit in a room and talk about players and drafts and where our picks are and who we might get and try to project, and it's intense.
You've been part of a draft where you've had the second overall pick before. Is there more pressure on management now that you're selecting in the top 2 to make sure you don't miss?
You never want to miss. We all do. You never want to miss. You really don't want to miss on your first round pick, no matter where it is. But I don't know. There's always pressure in this business. That's, get used to it.
Is there a bigger target for you guys now that you're picking as high as you are? Meaning, are you fielding more phone calls from other teams?
I haven't had any yet. Okay. When I do, I won't tell anybody, but I haven't had any yet, I can tell you that. We'll get calls. There's no question when you're high up in the draft, you always get calls, so we expect calls, whether anything gets interesting or not. No idea.
There's a misconception a little bit, or we should make an effort to remind people that this doesn't end with the second overall pick, because you have 10 or potentially 11 other picks to think about.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and we're not going to get too focused on. You can't just focus on one and okay, boys, the day's over. The hell with that. We got a lot of picks and we got to hit here. We can't just hit on number 2, and then be satisfied. It's no different than our players. Our players, if our players, we're up 2-0 after one period, and they're satisfied, we're going to get beat. If we make, if in fact we make the second pick, which I anticipate, we got a lot of work to do after that. The good thing is, the prep time in terms of picking 2, if we don't have another pick in the first round, we got till 43 or 43. So we got time to kind of watch the players fall, discuss it, talk internally, even at the table as it goes along. So it does give us a lot of time between our first pick and our second pick to get prepared. But you can't just hit on one player a year.
So your approach is the third round pick is just as important as the guys in the first round?
Absolutely. The third round picks are harder than the first round pick. Any first round pick, you got a pretty good chance of hitting. The third round picks, your odds are less, so you need to dig in even more and do more work and discuss it more. So I think the last few years our guys have done a terrific job in terms of picking guys in the mid to late rounds that are looking like very good prospects right now, which is what you want, right? I mean, after 2 years, a 5th round pick in all likelihood is not going to play, or a 6th round pick or a 7th round pick. But you look at last year and the year before, we got those kids playing the World Junior, we got 5th round pick, a 7th round pick. These are really good prospects, and that's all you can expect at this point, but we need to keep it going. We can't get complacent, we can't get satisfied, we need to keep pushing.
And looking down the line, that's often the teams that do the best in the draft, so the guys that find players late in drafts.
Absolutely. You can't, if you hit one player draft, you're not going to be successful. You've got to hit multiple players. It doesn't mean you're going to hit 7 or 10 or 11. It's impossible. But to hit on 2, 3, maybe some drafts 4, 5, you got to grab one once in a while. You got to grab one in the 7th round that's going to play. Maybe only plays 300 games, but that's a help for you. You got to balance your cap out, and if you're looking at free agents every year, you're going to be in big trouble.